Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for FOMO Friday. Yes, it is that time of the week where we go over the stories of the week that you should probably know. You may or may not know them, depending on how much of you're watching the propaganda media. And even if you're watching the propaganda media a lot, you probably don't know half of these things. So anyway, we like to cover this because we don't want you to have that fear of missing out. And from the a number of articles from the Daily Wire comes this very first one. And this is really a bit of good news, I think. We'll see as it goes on. But the Supreme Court on Wednesday started hearing arguments in a case to decide whether an Oklahoma Catholic school can participate in state's charter school program, pitting the school against the state's Republican attorney general, by the way. The controversy arose after the Oklahoma statewide charter school board approved a charter application from the Oklahoma city-based St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School. So this is even just a virtual school. But anyway, after taking office, Attorney General Gentner Drummond sued to block the school from being eligible for the program, saying the Oklahoma law mandated charter schools be non-sectarian, as he put it. Well, the Oklahoma Supreme Court agreed with Drummond and blocked the school from receiving more public funds for its school. Now, represented by the Alliance Defending Freedom, the charter board argues that the school's First Amendment rights are being discriminated against. Quote, instead of embracing schools like St. Isidore, who are stepping up to provide solutions, are discriminating against them just because of their faith. That's what the charter board chair, Brian Shellum, said in a presser called attention by the Daily Wire. Now, they also said that that's not just unfair, it's unconstitutional. Parents understand what's at stake in this case. They are seeking results, not roadblocks. So Oklahoma charter schools, which are free and open to all students, are privately run but publicly supported. In January, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case and will look at two questions. First, is whether the academic and you know basically the academic choices of a privately owned and run school, does it constitute state action simply because it's contracts with the state to offer a free education option for interested students? And second is whether Oklahoma is violating the free exercise clause by excluding the school. A win for St. Isidore would strike down a provision of the Oklahoma Charter School Act that expressly forbids religious charter schools and could open the door for more religious charter schools across the country, of course. Quote, a ruling for petitioners will promote parental choice, individual liberty, educational diversity, and student achievement. It will also improve the lives of economically disadvantaged families and children by creating high-quality education opportunities that are currently out of their reach. That's what the lawyers said for the Alliance Defending Freedom, and they wrote that in a brief. They also said excluding religious groups from Oklahoma's charter school program denies these opportunities and causes real harm. The court should uphold the First Amendment and end this discrimination. Now, the Alliance Defending Freedom lawyer, Jim Campbell, pointed the Daily Wire to three recent Supreme Court cases. Number one, Trinity Lutheran versus Comer, and also Espinoza versus Montana Department of Revenue and Carson versus Macon as examples of the high court siding with religious organizations that have been locked out of state programs. Now, in Carson, the Supreme Court struck down a ban in Maine on vouchers from going toward religious schools. Drummond also says that religious liberty is at stake, and saying that it would be wrong to make the public fund religious schools they are opposed to. Here's the quote: "As a committed Christian, the last thing I want is for my tax dollars to be used to fund the radical teachings of Sharia or the demonic worship of Satan. Thankfully, the court agreed with my position, and our religious liberty is protected for now." This is what he said in July. And he said, "Let me be clear. Religious liberty means every citizen is free to worship as he or she believes. Religious liberty does not mean that the government should fund religious indoctrination with our tax dollars." Now, he reiterated that argument in an op-ed published on Monday in the Oklahoman, where he said that he supported religious private schools, but did not want the government to fund them in any form. Quote, "I swore an oath to uphold the United States Constitution, and I believe our founding fathers knew best how to protect religious liberty by preventing the government from funding any religion at all. I do not want Oklahoma school children indoctrinated in public schools. I want them educated," he wrote. Now, a spokesman for Drummond told the Daily Wire that the op-ed summarized the heart of his arguments and pointed to comments he made after he won at the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Other top Oklahoma GOP officials, including the Governor Kevin Stitt, and Oklahoma State School Superintendent Ryan Walters, agreed with Drummond, saying Oklahomans know the Bible and Christian values shape our nation, and they're tired of seeing faith driven out of our schools. That's what Walters said. A.G. Drummond is out of step with Oklahoma conservatives who know what made America great, unquote. So this is definitely one of those things that we're going to keep our eye on, because it does bring together a couple of things. Number one, it says that, hey, you know what, our government school system is not doing well. We need different options and more competition there in order for the public school system to improve. And that's true, right? But it also brings in the other point. And that means that does government, should it fund private schools? Should it fund religious schools? And even some conservatives say no to that, because number one, it gives the government more control over those schools. There are schools and co-ops and things like this that absolutely take zero money from the government, so that they have no ties, because government money usually comes with some strings. So it's kind of an interesting case, and we'll see how the United States Supreme Court rules on this one. And in kind of along those steps, though, President Trump quipped about forgetting the separation of church and state, and declaring we're bringing religion back to our country during a National Day of Prayer event on Thursday. Because, like I say, this whole thing, there's a lot of people that are saying that this is a separation of church and state issue. It isn't really that, because the separation of church and state is the separation of the state from the church. The state cannot enact rules onto the state. Onto religion. But religion can be involved in government. So it's a one-way street, not a two-way street. But at the National Day of Prayer, Donald Trump, he said some really interesting things. He said, separation of church and state, they told me, let's forget about that for one time. We said, really? Separation? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure. That's what Trump remarked during the Rose Garden ceremony. He said, but whether there's separation or not, you guys are in the White House where you should be, and you're representing our country. This is what Trump told faith leaders at the event, and adding that we're bringing religion back to our country. Trump actually signed an executive order at that time, and that was first reported by the Daily Wire, actually, establishing the Religious Liberty Commission to be composed of church clergy, legal experts, and other Trump allies tasked with identifying threats to domestic religious liberty. This is kind of neat. And such attacks on houses of worship and the First Amendment violations, and recommending protective actions in those cases. So he's forming this group, which is kind of neat. I mean, it's something that we have needed for a while, in my opinion. But during the Rose Garden ceremony, Trump thanked Paula White, White House senior advisor and leader of the White House Faith Office, for her dedication to religious freedom, and emphasized the importance of protecting religious expression in American life, saying prayer is not a religious act. It's a national necessity. That's what Paula White said. Later adding, asking God in a prayer to grant the present wisdom beyond human understanding and capability and divine dreams. So again, we should all be praying for our leadership, whether it be at the state level or any level, really, all the way up to president. Quote, we call for a spiritual reset in our nation, to return to what is right, a reverence for what is sacred, a real alignment with your divine purpose, she said. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, vice chairman of the committee, along with former Housing Secretary Ben Carson, was also present at the event, praising the president, saying there's never been a president who's invoked the name of Jesus more than you. Trump's latest order builds on Trump's previous executive action in February, establishing a task force to eradicate anti-Christian biases, which aimed to address what Trump described as the Biden administration's egregious pattern of targeting peaceful Christians while ignoring violent anti-Christian offenses. He's not wrong, right? Religious liberty concerns have escalated significantly in recent years, with numerous legal challenges arising across the country involving prayer in schools and religious symbols in public spaces, and faith-based organizations hiring practices. The Religious Liberty Commission is expected to hold its first formal meeting within the next several weeks. That's awesome, right? And the commission's set to terminate on July 4th of next year, which marks the 250th anniversary of American independence, unless extended by the president, of course. So yeah, we're gonna see this commission and see if it can't root out some of this religious bias that we've seen in recent years. But despite the good news, and I know we started off with some really good news here, it looks like we did have a bit of, well, probably bad news. But at least it's not in our country, it's in Canada. The Canadian Liberal Party, led by Prime Minister Mark Carney, won the Canadian election on Tuesday after the Conservative Party, led by Pierre Poilievre, had held a 25-point lead among decided voters in December. As of Tuesday morning, the Liberal Party won 154 seats with 43.5% of the vote. Despite not winning the election, Poilievre's Conservatives achieved their best result, though, in years, garnering 41.4% of the vote and adding 20 seats. However, Poilievre lost his seat in Parliament, which could jeopardize his role as leader of the Conservative Party, though it's not looking like he is going to have a problem with that. As Ipsos poll conducted last December found that the Conservative Party garnered 20% of the vote, while the Liberals, led then by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, remember him? yeah. Anyway, they tied with the New Democratic Party at 20% at the time, and the Liberals had the lowest share of popular vote since 2011. But in mid-April, a Nanos poll showed the Liberals leading by 6 percentage points, and Poilievre's lead in the polls shrank as President Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Canada and made sarcastic remarks, calling Canada the 51st state and things like this. Trump referred to Canada as the 51st state at a dinner with Trudeau at Mar-a-Lago last December after the Canadian Prime Minister stated his concerns about Trump's proposed 25% tariff on Canada. And the Public Safety Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, commented that the president was telling jokes and the president was teasing us. It was, of course, on that issue in no way a serious commitment. But in late December, Poilievre, seeking Canadians react defensively to Trump's comments, responded, and he said, "I have the strength and the smarts to stand up for this country, and my message to incoming President Trump is the first and foremost. Canada will never be the 51st state of the United States." And in early January, Trudeau resigned, of course, saying that he would stay on until a new leader of his party was chosen. And after Carney was selected to replace Trudeau in mid-March, he consistently said that Trump wants to break us so America can own us. And that seemed to work. I mean, after he was sworn in, Trump announced that he would implement an additional 25% tariff on Canada imports. On February 1st, he announced 25% tariffs on virtually all imports from Canada. And on February 3rd, he announced a 30-day pause on those tariffs. On February 27th, he said the tariffs against Canada would go into effect on March 4th, as scheduled. And on March 5th, he said that he would pause tariffs on cars coming into the U.S. for 1 month. And on April 9th, he said that he would pause all reciprocal tariffs for 90 days and make them 10% across the board. So kind of this back and forth, and it definitely put some uneasiness within the Canadians. In mid-March, Trump told Fox News' Laura Ingraham, quote, "I'd rather deal with a liberal than a conservative. The conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine, and I don't know him, but he's said negative things, and when he's said negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal actually with a liberal." Poilievre, of course, responded to that. He said last night President Donald Trump endorsed Mark Carney. Why? Because, as Trump said, he's easier to deal with and knows that I will be a tough negotiator and always put Canada first. Carney is weak and would cave to Trump's demands, just like he did when he moved his company headquarters from Canada to New York City. Well, Canadians don't want a weak, conflicted leader. They want a strong prime minister who will put Canada first. On Monday, the day of the election, Trump again wrote on Truth Social about Canada becoming a state. "Good luck to the great people of Canada," he said. "Elect the man who has the strength and wisdom to cut your taxes in half, increase your military power for free to the highest level in the world, have your car, steel, aluminum, lumber, energy, and all the other businesses quadruple in size with zero tariffs or taxes. If Canada becomes the cherished 51st state of the United States of America, no more artificial drawn lines from many years ago. Look how beautiful this land mass would be. Free access with no border, all positives with no negatives. It was meant to be. America can no longer subsidize Canada with the hundreds of billions of dollars a year that we have been spending in the past. It makes no sense unless Canada is a state." So that didn't really help. As Canadian voters went to the polls on Monday, Poilievre, a hardline conservative, he really is a strong candidate. And he wrote on X, he said, "President Trump, stay out of our election. The only people who will decide the future of Canada are Canadians at the ballot box. Canada will always be proud, sovereign, and independent, as we will never be the 51st state. Today, Canadians can vote for change so we can strengthen our country, stand on our own 2 feet, and stand up to America from a position of strength." To form a majority in the Parliament of Canada, a party must gather 172 seats. According to CTV News, and the CBC, the Liberal Party won enough seats to form a majority government. They will have to unite with the leftist NDP and the Green Party to form a majority government. So they at least didn't have enough to form it just themselves. As of Tuesday morning, with almost all of the votes recorded, the Liberals were projected to win 168 seats compared to the Conservatives' 144, and the Quebecist Party 23, and the NDP 7 seats, and the Green Party 1. So the Liberals only need 4 more seats, while the NDP would have the 4 to give them. And so we'll have to watch on this. I mean, the good thing, I guess, here is particularly for Poilievre and that type of thing is that I mean, this could actually even change. They could have another national election even within a year, and so we'll see how this goes. Obviously, I think to be honest with you, I think it's a missed opportunity here because Poilievre was a very good conservative, very good candidate, and it looks like our involvement there swung that election toward the Liberal. But another bit of I guess you really can't call this surprising because I think a lot of people kind of already knew that this kind of thing was going on, but now it's kind of confirmed. Secretary of State Marco Rubio revealed during Wednesday's cabinet meeting that former President Joe Biden's State Department had kept dossiers or files on the social media posts of American citizens, including one person who was sitting at this at the very table that he was talking with there. Rubio explained that the office, which appeared to have been created for the sole purpose, get this, the sole purpose of censoring American citizens, had been monitoring the social media posts of numerous individuals who were referred to as vectors of disinformation. Yeah. Quote, we had an office in the Department of State, the Department of State, whose job it was to censor Americans, Rubio said. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'm leaving it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We had these dossiers. We were going to turn those over to these individuals. Vice President J.D. Vance interrupted with a question: was it me or Elon? So, of course, laughter interrupted the table, and as Rubio continued. But he said, well, we are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they will decide whether or not they want to disclose it or not. But just think about it. The Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentaries of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation, when we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency. I could not have said it better myself. He said, and so that's what we're going to be in the business of doing. We're not going to have an office that does that, Rubio concluded. So, I mean, seriously, think about this for a second. I mean, this is so bad that taxpayer dollars were going to an agency, to fund an agency, to basically spy on its own citizens, to monitor what they are saying on social media, and then take that information and try to censor them. So we already know that the Biden administration and even others were going to social media and putting immense pressure on these social media companies to censor people. And we had an entire taxpayer-funded agency to do that. So again, not super big surprise, but it still just kind of hits you, doesn't it, when you know that it really was the truth. Well, I tell you what, let's kind of end things here on some kind of lighthearted things. There's 2 things here that kind of go together. As you know, with the November election, we really dodged a bullet when it came to the two that could have been president and vice president. Tim Walz, of course, was one of those. And Governor Tim Walz, the Democrat from Minnesota, claimed during a recent listening tour event, as they're naming it, that former Vice President Kamala Harris chose him as her running mate because he could code talk to white guys. Yeah, and provide a permission structure in which they might feel comfortable voting for a black woman. yeah. Walz spoke Monday evening at the Harvard Kennedy School Forum, and after stating that he had no plans to run for Democratic nomination in 2028, he explained that he believed he was brought to the table during the 2024 presidential campaign for a certain reason. Here, let me play this, and you can decide if this is just absolutely hilarious or not. So he was there to code talk. First of all, I don't think I have ever said the phrase code talk. Have you? I mean, that's kind of crazy, don't you think? It is not a phrase that I've ever used. I don't think that any guy, man's man type thing, uses the word code talk when referring to bros and, going out and watching football and drinking beer and working on the truck. You know what I mean? I mean, that's not Tim Walz, I mean, if he was brought in for that, yeah, they failed, and obviously they failed dramatically. In fact, he threw himself under the bus a little bit later on in that speech, saying that, well, you know what, I was brought in to do that, and except for Minnesota, we failed. We didn't achieve that in any of the swing states, and he even threw himself under the bus for that. I mean, this guy is not a man's man. Okay. That's why they call him Tampon Tim. He was the one responsible for putting tampons in boys' bathrooms in his state as governor. And he just is not a man's man, even though that's what Kamala Harris wanted him to be. But speaking of Kamala Harris, former Vice President Kamala Harris was back in the spotlight with, for the first time since her loss to Donald Trump. Taking the stage in San Francisco on Wednesday night to deliver a speech ripping the president. Harris gave the keynote address for the 20th anniversary gala for Emerge. Now, Emerge is a Democratic organization that recruits women to run for office, or at least transgender. Really, they like to recruit more transgender type people to run for office. And after a quick acknowledgement of the leftist organization at the beginning of her speech, Harris quickly moved to taking shots at the Trump administration, of course, saying the American people deserve leaders who make their lives better and make a country stronger. But sadly, we have seen quite the opposite over these past few months. This is what Harris said. She says, now I know tonight's event happens to coincide with the 100 days after the inauguration, and I'll leave it to others to give a full accounting of what has happened so far. But I will say this, instead of an administration working to advance America's highest ideals, we are witnessing the wholesale abandonment of those ideals. Now I say that kind of weird in trying, I can't do Kamala Harris, but she actually was trying to use her angry voice there. It was really cringy, and she trying to, kind of Biden kind of used to do the same thing. All of a sudden you just come out with this angry voice, and she was trying to do the same thing, but then she kind of turned to this, and she got into this whole, well, you know how Kamala likes to do. Here, listen to this.
In fact, please allow me, friends, to digress for a moment. Okay. It's kind of dark in here, but I'm asking for a show of hands. Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago? The one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake? Google it if you've not seen it. So that scene has been on my mind. Everybody's asking me what you've been thinking about these days. Well, so in the video, for those who haven't seen it, here those elephants were. And as soon as they felt the earth shaking beneath their feet, they got in a circle and stood next to each other to protect the most vulnerable. Think about it. What a powerful metaphor.
Oh, boy. I mean, literally, that could have been President of the United States. What a country we live in. I mean, that's what she's thinking about. I love Carolyn Leavitt. And when she was asked about the press secretary for the White House, when she was asked about the speech and what was said there, she just said, hey, we are wholeheartedly in support of Kamala Harris speaking more. I mean, seriously, she's not doing her party any favors. And this is a woman who wants to be president again, possibly, and at least governor of California. I guess can't do any worse there. But anyway, man, we dodged a bullet with those two, didn't we? So anyway, I would love to hear from you on the stories of the week. You can always send those in via our website, uncommonsensepodcast.com. Of course, we're on YouTube now, so if you would like and subscribe and even tell a friend about it, that would be awesome. And thank you for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.